Hello, happy Monday, everybody. So great to see everybody's shining faces. Yay, I love this part. I hope everybody had a beautiful weekend. Let me just check my volume here. And happy Mother's Day to everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so I had a wonderful Mother's Day. My little baby got engaged this weekend, so that was exciting, and I wanted to share that very exciting news. I feel like we all could use some happiness and happy moments in this dark time that we're going through. And I think it's a good reminder, you know, and if you guys have ever been to my lectures before, I mention connection to as part of every health lecture I give. I think connection, I think hugs, I think family, I think is so important as part of our health plan. And so, yeah, you know, it's life is not canceled, even though it feels like it is some days. And I think happy moments are very important. And like Zoom Mother's Day was not the ideal situation. It's not something that I would have chosen to have our family together, but it is the new reality. And I think even one of the reasons I did this program was to create community for people and bring people together to connect, connect in general, connect about their health, connect to overcome some fear and loneliness. And so I wanted to share that happy moment with all of you. So as I said, I created this program a while ago. It's been in my mind for over a year. Initially, I called it the Prevention Partnership Program because I feel that's kind of what I am with my patients. I think of myself like a prevention partner for them in their health, in their health plan. And as this COVID thing evolved, we kind of it morphed into the wellness warriors, because I do think we're sort of going through a war right now. And I think that it's about focusing on our health. It's about loading our toolbox. It's about learning as much as we can, which is why we got this program out quickly and we tweaked it so it could be available on Zoom, because we were just getting so many questions from our patients. That just a lot of fear, a lot of concern, a lot of not knowing. And so that's why we started this and we rolled it out. And this is week 3. For those of you, there are some new faces on this week. If you missed week 1 and 2, they are available on our website, on our blog, which I'll post at the end, and Jesse can drop in the chat. The PowerPoints are attached so you could share it with people. The webinars are available on YouTube. So if you didn't, we'll do a quick review today, and I'll kind of mention the things that we talked about the prior 2 weeks. But if you want to go back and catch up on those or kind of share that with friends and family, you know, feel free. I think it's so important because we are really literally learning as we go. And I can say that's true for everybody in medicine right now. The way we, honestly, the things I said 2 weeks ago, there's some different things this week, right? So, you know, this condition, this virus is really not like anything we've seen in nature. It's not like anything we've treated. Doctors in the ICU and the ER, they're all saying the same thing. We're literally learning as we go. Even the treatment that they're doing in the hospitals is so different than it was 2 months ago, because we're learning honestly from our mistakes, and we're learning how to better optimize patients and keep them from you know, succumbing to this virus. So we wanted to share this information as quick as we can, and it's new and it's evolving, and so that's why we got to get on here and keep people up to date. You know, there are simple things that you can do to protect yourself. Just so quick, there's some new faces that maybe don't know me. Just a quick, who am I? I took the long and windy road through medicine. You know, I started off in EMS and EMT as a paramedic, a trauma technologist. So I'm very, my roots are in emergency management and disaster management. And I did that for a good portion of my career. You know, I then got married and was a stay-at-home mom for 3 years. And that was, you know, probably the hardest job I ever had. So I can relate to all your moms that are home with their little ones 24/7, no weekends, no breaks, no vacations. I get it. It's hard, but it's so good. And I'm hearing from families. I mean, I can speak to my own, you know, what it's doing for our family is it's really bringing people together. And I'm seeing moms with small children really jump into that role of motherhood in a way that that we haven't had a chance to do in a long time. So it's really inspiring to see how this is bringing people together. Then became a physician assistant, was mostly as a surgical PA. I was the chief surgical PA at North Shore Manhasset Hospital back before it was Northwell, and I worked in the ICU. So it was my job to deal with ventilators and, intubate patients and care for people in critical illness and septic shock. And so I have a lot of understanding, a lot of pearls of wisdom that I learned in the ICU in that situation that I now have rolled into my prevention plan for my patients. And just knowing about the physiology of the body and survival, what the body does to cope, to survive. That's what we're here for, is to survive. And tapping into that physiology is a lot of the stuff that I'm using right now to help my patients with this virus. And then, people always ask, how did you go from surgery, ICU, to preventative medicine, to integrative medicine? And it was my family members. I had a sister-in-law who got cancer, and I would say for most physicians and practitioners in integrative medicine, we all have a personal story. It was usually a family member, or maybe we got sick, one of us got sick, a personal experience that allows you to take off your blinders and let go of your belief systems and stop following the recipe that we're taught in medicine, and open our eyes to things like nutrition and stress relief, and the fact that stress can tax the immune system. I didn't learn any of this in any of my years in any of my formidable institutions. I was not taught to think about prevention, and I was not taught to think about why people get sick. So I use all that medical background, all that medical understanding, all my years of education to now study things that will help people get out of trouble, keep them out of the hospital. It's been always a focus of my practice. And then at 40, went back to medical school and got my PhD. And the focus of my PhD was in preventative healthcare, preventative treatments to prevent cancer. So it's been a passion of mine for a long time. And honestly, the same tools that I use to help someone get through cancer or think about preventing cancer are the exact same tools that I'm using today, that I'm using for anti-aging, that I'm using for cancer prevention, that I'm using for optimizing the human body. It's about optimizing the function so that we don't get sick. And that's the same exact thing we're using with this virus. This virus is all over the place. In the beginning, they were saying, you have to worry about pre-existing conditions. Then we started to see all these young people pass away from this disease that did have pre-existing conditions that they knew about, at least. We are now thinking differently. A lot of doctors are thinking about nutrition now. They're thinking about vitamin levels. They're thinking about things that they have to, because there is no treatment for this. There is no conventional treatment that works. So we have to focus on boosting your own immune system. So we very quickly in March, when I realized that it was more risk than benefit to bring people together in a space. It was just this virus was so contagious and it was spreading so quickly that it was just unethical for us to be bringing people into the office. So we very quickly switched over to a virtual practice. We are offering virtual visits, new patient visits. We created a special COVID half-hour follow-up for people just to get them to have a personal one-on-one, to get their protocol, to help them if they were diagnosed, to get them through. We have successfully kept all of our patients out of the hospital, which is just amazing. And I attribute all of the things that we're talking about in these webinars to that success rate, which is why I want to get it out to as many people as possible, because these are things everybody should be doing, everybody can be doing. Very simple things that I think are making a big difference in preventing hospitalizations with this and death. We were doing drive-through testing. The antibody tests are coming. We'll talk a little bit about that today. They're all over the place. I don't have a real firm comfort level with the outcomes that I'm seeing with the antibody tests. I will talk a little bit about what we're looking for, what's available in the market, and what I think where you can get accurate testing. We don't have that yet. The group learning, and we are doing virtual stress relief sessions as well. So just to quickly regroup on the last two webinars, I went over a lot about my toolbox, right? Vitamin D, vitamin D, vitamin D. I will talk about that again this week, because I do think it is the single most important connection to keeping people well through this virus. Vitamin D, the levels should be checked. Obviously, everybody can't run out to the lab right now, but they should be, blood levels should be between 80 and 100. Um, we'll talk a little bit about that in a couple more slides. We talked about zinc because we know that that boosts the immune system and is very effective against viruses. We talked about vitamin C. We talked about vitamin C drips. We talked about a healthy gut and how important that is because 80% of your immune system lives in your gut. We talked about medicinal mushrooms, breath work that we're using to help prevent the lung symptoms with COVID. And again, the prior two webinars go into depth on those topics and are all available on our blog page, which is listed right there. I think of your immune system like your army. Often you guys have heard me refer to it as your firefighters, right? They are there to protect you, right? So how well have we trained them? How well have we prepared them? How well are we feeding them? How well have we armed our army? And for so many of you, you've worked with me for years and you've been doing this for years. But it's so important right now. It's the most important thing that you could be doing. So hormonal balance, adrenal health, gut health, optimal nutrition, optimal strength, sleep hygiene, toxic overload. Are some of these patients who are getting critically ill without pre-existing conditions, are they very toxic? Possibly, we're going to talk a little bit about the health alert that came out about children. And connection to possibly, is there some play there with toxins and these kids that are getting very sick? I have a lot of people come to me. They don't come to me because they have a disease. They come to me because they want to be optimized. They don't want to get sick like Aunt Kathy, and they don't want to, feel tired, and they want to age gracefully, and they want to feel good. And very commonly, they'll tell me they're achy, they're moody, they're anxious, they're sad, GI distress, or do you feel less vital than you did a year ago? These are things that I ask my patients, and I'm sort of listening like a detective to listen for those imbalances, to tell me that that body might not be right where we need it to be. A lot of people, we do the extensive blood work and we find several autoimmune conditions. We find significant malabsorption and nutrient deficiency. We find high levels of inflammation. And these are people who are walking around not really knowing that anything is wrong, just feeling slightly out of balance. And oftentimes they'll say, I went to my primary care doctor. I told him my hair was falling out. I told him I was tired. I've had, 42-year-old women be told that they just felt bad because they had 4 kids. That's just not acceptable, right? Your body doesn't feel bad because you have a few kids and because you're busy or you're stressed. It feels bad because it's trying to tell you something. So these are the things that we listen for to identify the underlying conditions that might be creating the symptoms in the first place. So it's always good to focus on that. Then we boost the immune system. We do use IV nutrition. We were doing this in the office a lot. We got a lot of preventative drips in before we had to close the office. And now we're doing IV home drips, especially for patients with COVID and having really dramatic results. Stress relief, boost the gut health, maximize the nutrition, and exercise. So important. We have the ability to boost our immune system. That's why I really want to get this out to people, that you're not just a sitting duck waiting to get a severe case and end up in the hospital, that you have tools, that you have control over this. And vitamin D, as I said in the prior 2 lectures, and I keep going over it because I really, really feel strongly, there's a lot of observations being made right now that, African Americans are getting more critical cases, ending up in the hospital more often and on a ventilator. I honestly believe this is because when you have dark skin, it's harder for you to get enough vitamin D from the sun. I think the sun is really not working that well for anybody, but the darker your skin, the more sun exposure you need. So most of my patients with dark skin, they have the lowest levels of vitamin D. So we got to get this word out there. We got to get everybody taking vitamin D. It is so, so important. And you really can't get it from food. I mean, most of the foods that are rich in vitamin D are dairy, and, I don't like dairy, if you've been around me for a while. Fish, the big fish like tuna and salmon have a lot of mercury, so I really don't recommend them. So you really have to take a good nutritional supplement to get enough vitamin D. And I had been saying over the last 3 years that I felt that pollution was really affecting the UVB rays' ability to get through to our skin and make vitamin D, which is why I had to give much higher levels. Most of my patients are taking 5, 10, or 15,000 of vitamin D on a daily basis, where I used to give 1 or 2,000. And now it'll be interesting. Okay. So I plan to do a little study when I start checking antibodies. I want to start checking vitamin D levels in every patient, because I am noticing when I go outside that the sun is much stronger because the pollution has lifted, because we haven't been out there polluting the world in the last 2 months. So all that pollution is going into the upper atmosphere. And so those sun rays are more powerful than they were before, which is going to help your vitamin D level. But it's going to be important to check those levels, because I know I've been out in the sun the last 2 weekends. So I'd be curious to see, is my level higher than it was based on the same dosage that I'm taking? So that's something I'm going to look at, just a small study in our patients. So we are what we eat. There has never been a more important time to eat well. We're sad, we're alone, we're at home, and you're getting those pulls, right? So sweets are comfort food, right? Donuts and candy, and people get pulled towards sweets because, like, when I was a good girl, I got a lollipop, right? Like, we were sort of conditioned to, badly conditioned, to be rewarded by sweets. And that's probably the worst thing that you could be eating right now, because it literally shuts your immune system down for 6 hours. So, this is what the food pyramid should look like, okay? This is very different than the food pyramid we grew up with, that we learned in school. And I'll show you that on the next slide. But, look at all the base of this should be fresh, organic vegetables, right? Vegetables should be the main player on your plate every day. Then we've got clean protein, organic, grass-fed, free-range chicken and eggs, right? Clean protein. Then we've got organic oils, right? Avocado, coconut, olive oil, right? I'm an oil snob. I want the good cold pressed Greek olive oil, right? The more good fats, that's the healthiest thing you could eat for brain health, right? Good fats are very important for blood, for the fluidity of the blood, right? And so we're hearing a lot about clotting, and we're going to talk a little bit about this, strokes, pulmonary embolisms, right? This disease creates a coagulopathy. Good healthy oils, good healthy fish oils, very important right now. Nuts and seeds, going to be all that rich in zinc and selenium and all your minerals. Again, fats, and a little bit of fruit in season. People can get into trouble. Fruit is healthy, don't get me wrong. It's antioxidant, it's packed full of nutrients, but fruit is sugar, right? So I'll eat green apples, I'll eat all kinds of berries. In the summer, if I treat myself to a plum or a mango, it's a treat. It's not a mainstay of my diet. I've had several patients over the years become diabetic from eating too much sweet fruit. So you got to kind of file that away. And kind of shift that perspective that fruit's all good and it can't hurt. So this is the old pyramid. We had 10, 12 servings of bread and grains a day. It was like they told us to make the mainstay of our diet the one thing we shouldn't be eating, right? And that couldn't be more important than right now. Carbs and sugar and pasta and bread, and that's all shutting your immune system down. Keep that on the bare minimum. And if you're doing it, have it be gluten-free. I always joke that everything our moms told us was wrong, right? So bread is bad. Fat is actually good. Fat got a really bad rap in the 80s. It was low fat, low fat, low fat. Now we're like going, uh-oh, now everybody's getting dementia and they have diabetes. Maybe we messed that up. And milk does not do the body good, right? So I had the milk mustache. I was not allowed to leave the table without drinking my milk. In fact, I did that with my kids when they were little as well. And it's just one of those things that we were convinced that that's what you needed for strong bones, that milk did the body good. I stopped giving my children milk as long as a long time ago when they were 6 and 8 years old. And almond milk has more calcium than cow's milk, right? So calcium, green smoothie, you can get a ton of calcium from your green smoothie. So there are things you can do to get calcium that don't involve animal milk. So this came out this week, and I got a lot of panicked parents reaching out, obviously totally understandable. If you look at the first webinar, I talked about how this virus is so not following any rules. It's not making much sense. It doesn't seem to be like anything else we've seen in nature. The one good thing was that it seemed to be sparing pregnant women and children, in that they were testing positive, but they were asymptomatic, if not very, very mild symptoms. So I said this in the first 2 webinars because to date, that's what I had seen in my practice. That's what I have been reading. That's what the health department has been telling us. We do weekly webinars with the New York State Health Department. So we are getting this information as it's coming. And this is something that is just happening right now, that these children are getting a Kawasaki-like disease or toxic shock syndrome, becoming very critically ill, intubated, and in ICUs, and it's very scary. It's basically causing a multi-system inflammatory syndrome, which is presenting, I have some pictures a couple of slides later, but with rashes, discoloration on their toes. It's very scary. You know, I have to believe that these children are in some way, shape, or form already immune compromised. I have not taken care of a child going through this. None of my families have had any situation like this, thank God. But I do have to believe maybe there's an underlying autoimmune condition. Maybe this child has a suppressed immune system that the parents didn't yet know about. They could be very toxic. There's cases in New York. I haven't heard of cases outside of New York. I did hear of cases coming from the UK as well as France. So it seems to be small pockets where this is happening. I mean, New York City, obviously, we are very toxic here. There's a lot more toxins in New York than there is in Kansas. So, could there be a connection there? I don't know yet. I really don't know yet. I have to believe that all of the things we're doing for our families, for ourselves, for our children, for our grandchildren are going to minimize the risk of this happening. Everything we've been talking about in the last 2 webinars is inflammation. This disease is inflammatory. That's what it is. It creates inflammation in the lungs, inflammation in the blood vessels, in the mucous membranes. It's an inflammatory. Everything we talk about is anti-inflammatory. So simple things like your fish oils, your really good fish oils are, I always put people on fish oils. I do it for brain health. I do it for gut health. I do it for joint health. I always say it's like the biggest bang for your buck when it comes to fish oils, because it pretty much hits every part of your body. But it is a blood thinner. It is something, not a blood thinner in a way that is going to make you bleed, but it is in some way, shape, or form helping us thin the blood, and I think helpful in this situation. So I'm advising parents, if they don't already have their children on fish oils, to start, good fish oils, vitamin D, all the things we're doing, we're already doing is God willing going to be enough to prevent these things from happening to our children. This is some of the pictures that we're seeing online. They get a very red tongue, almost like bleeding underneath the tongue. Tips of the fingers look like frostbite. Rashes can be full body or just on part of the body. And like it says here, we are seeing some cases in the United Kingdom as well as France. But this is something that, children are presenting with, a rash, conjunctivitis, swollen tongue, high fevers, abdominal pain, and it is something that requires medical attention urgently. A lot of people are getting skin rashes. So just because skin rashes present does not mean it's something serious like this. A good portion of my patients have had skin rashes. I'm seeing rashes sometimes present as the presenting symptom, as well as a late onset symptom. So they go through the whole virus, they get better, and all of a sudden they call me because they have a rash weeks later sometimes. They can be itchy. They could just be, I have some pictures here. This is like a petechial skin rash. It's almost like little blood vessels burst underneath the skin. For all the rashes, no matter what, itchy, not itchy, part of the body, all of the body, these are the things that I'm recommending. CBD ointment is wonderful to apply topically. Lavender oil is very anti-inflammatory. Coconut oil can be very soothing. So you could take the lavender and mix it with the coconut oil and make like a little balm to put on the rash. Sacred frankincense oil, which is the oil, the breast balm that we use as part of our breast protocol. A lot of you guys have this in the house. If you've ever done thermography with me, you brought this home for yourself. You can use this on children. You can use this on a rash. It doesn't have to be just for the breast. Sacred frankincense is one of the most anti-inflammatory topicals that we have, which is why I use it as part of our breast prevention protocol. And I highly recommend it for anything. Even if I get something on my skin, I'll slap some frankincense on it. If people come in and they have something kind of questionable, I'll say put frankincense on it for 2 weeks. If it doesn't go away, see your dermatologist. And a lot of times it goes away. I would say 7 out of 10 times, things that even just pre-cancer skin lesions, they go away. So it's a really powerful tool that you have already in your toolbox at home. Most families have this at home if you've been working with me. Epsom salt baths are another thing that's very helpful. I've been recommending Epsom salt baths for a lot of reasons. It's soothing to the skin. It's detoxifying. It's also the heat from the bath can be very helpful, I think, at preventing the disease as well as keeping the symptoms on a minimum. This COVID toes, it's getting a lot of hype on social media, I think because it just looks scary. They're basically getting what looks like frostbite on their toes. We're seeing this in children. We're seeing this in young adults. It seems to be affecting young people more, sort of like the symptom where we're losing the smell and taste. That seems to be affecting more young, healthy patients. Again, who the heck knows why? There is no rhyme or reason to this virus, guys. I mean, it is like nothing I've ever seen before. So you don't know. When I look at this, I think, okay, I want that fish oil on board. I want that blood to be thin. I want that blood to be flowing. I want to increase circulation to that area. So for some of my patients, you've experienced the beamer in my office. We have a beamer treatment. And a lot of my patients have beamers at home that they've purchased for pre-existing conditions that we were treating. This beamer, I think, is a go-to for preventing these kind of vascular circulation issues with this virus. So if you have one, if you have a friend that has one and you can use it, go for it. I've been using my beamer twice a day through this entire thing, sleeping on it with my sleep program. We're going to go into depth about the beamer on the next webinar, just a little bit more on the science. It's a lot, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but we will be talking about that. We do have a informational webinar, which I'll put information in the blog on this webinar spot so that you can go. It's an interactive webinar on Beamer where you can learn more. So cutaneous symptoms are big. Full body rashes, eczema type rashes. I've seen it all. I am seeing some of my sicker patients that got very severely ill that I was worried about. Really, are we going to be able to keep them out of the hospital? We were keeping in touch every day, every other day. They definitely developed the rash. It seems like the older patients, the more severe the case, the more likely it was for them to get a rash. And some patients it's weeks later and they're still dealing with the rash. But I do find those topicals really to be beneficial in helping. So this is a very interesting symptom that, loss of taste and smell. One of my patients was cute. He was like, I did a shot of whiskey because I couldn't believe how bad this was, that I couldn't smell anything. I could feel the burn in the back of my throat, but I couldn't smell or taste the whiskey. Not that I recommend that taste test, but it was interesting. It can be, I've never seen the symptom attributed with anything else except brain lesions. So if you came to me a year ago and said, I don't smell, I do a brain MRI, because I would be worried that there would be some sort of issue that caused this symptom. But I don't know of any virus, bacteria, anything else that presents with this symptom. So when patients tell me they have this loss of taste or smell, as far as I'm concerned, you're positive with COVID. There isn't any other reason for this. And can last a week, can last a few days. I have one patient that lasts about 3 weeks. It's a terrible symptom to have because you can't taste your food. So it's annoying. I mean, it's not deadly, but it is not pleasant. And it's definitely attributed to COVID. It seems to be mostly in young people and pretty healthy adults. Clotting issues. This is another thing that's just come out in the last couple of weeks. We were not talking about this in the beginning, which is why when you're watching these videos from these intensivists, these doctors working in the ICU, they're like, we're treating the wrong disease. We were treating the wrong disease, which is why the death rates were so high in the beginning, is that we were treating it like pneumonia. We weren't putting patients on blood thinners. They are now. Everybody was get on a ventilator. And then they realized the ventilators were causing more trauma to the lungs and making it worse. It's a lot that we're learning on the front lines of this disease that we didn't know. I wish that we had more information from, China, from countries that dealt with this months before us, because I think it would have saved a lot of lives. But these large vessel strokes, pulmonary embolism, we think this is related to this coagulopathy. So they are starting people on blood thinners. Most of my patients are already on fish oils. Fish oils are wonderful for this. I don't know if that's been the trick. We haven't had any, thank God, any patients develop any of these symptoms. We haven't had any of these clotting issues. And I'm hopeful that that's going to remain the same. The beamer is definitely going to increase blood flow and decrease inflammation, which again, that's the key for this disease. I'm telling it, exercise, increase blood flow. I don't care if you're that sick, you have to walk around the backyard, you have to walk up and down the stairs, you got to get those family members out and make them move. Your inclination is to curl up in a little ball and sleep for 3 days. You can't do that with this virus, right? You got to move, you got to open your lungs, and you got to oxygenate, and you got to get the circulation going. And if you don't have a beamer, you got your legs, you got your bike in the basement, you got your treadmill, you got to be using it right now. It will save your life. Again, duration of disease, I have patients testing positive on nasal swabs 45 days after their initial. I've had symptoms, they get better, they get worse, they get better, they get worse. I've had patients that have tested positive for antibodies. So, and then we know their body had it, it's in recovery, their body's building an immunity, but yet they still have symptoms. This is very, very unusual virus. So it's all over the place. I mean, you could have any one of these things. The gut is your foundation, which is why it's so important to be taking your probiotics, to be eating well, and to be, making sure your digestion's moving. You make sure you're taking your green smoothies, make sure you're having your bowel movements every day. Healthy gut, healthy life. If you've been to my seminars, if you've been to my healthy happy hours, you've seen this slide. Not a lot about what I'm screaming from the mountaintops about is that different than I ever have. It's just that I need to get it out quicker to people. Probiotics, vitamin D, zinc, vitamin C, healthy oils. Cut out the gluten and the dairy. You don't need any of this crap confusing or distracting your soldiers. You need them to be on guard and supercharged when it encounters this virus. Avoid sugar. Drink your green smoothies. Check your body for food sensitivities. We want to get people off anything that's distracting their immune system and anything that is causing inflammation in their bodies. We have the ability to do this. Cut back on your sugar. Listen to your body. Just listen to your body. Don't ignore and push through. I keep putting this slide in again because I think this is not getting a lot of attention in the media, but this virus really doesn't like heat. And I feel it's been a key ingredient to my patients getting better. If they have a sauna, I'm having them get in it. We're getting in the sauna in my house all the time, every day. Hot bath, hot shower, exercise is raising your body temperature, right? Well, this doesn't like heat. Some patients are being diagnosed with this virus, doing all of these things, never getting symptoms. I have to believe that all of these things are working together to protect and support our patients. And these are simple: hot bath, hot shower. If you have a biomat, crank that heat up, right? These are tools you've been gathering for years with me. So now's the time to use them. This is our prevention plan. This is on our website. It's on our blog. We've sent it out to most of our patients through Fullscript, so they have access to be able to purchase it. These are the things we've been talking about in all the different lectures. I try to hone in and really go into specific detail and support it with education and with studies. And, so if you go back and watch the last few webinars, you'll see that. But these are the things we're doing as a preventative. This is what my family's taking on a daily basis to hopefully prevent this disease. And then if sick, we have a different protocol. So if you do develop symptoms, these are my go-tos. And again, we've sent this out. We have it available. Jesse will drop in the chat for you to be able to order anything if you don't have it. Thieves has been my go-to for cleaning my house. I have a room spray that I've created for the light switches and the door handles. I spray myself when I come out of the house, and I decontaminate with Thieves on my skin that might have been exposed when I'm in the house with the COVID patients. After I take off my protective wear, everything gets sprayed with Thieves. We have Thieves hand sanitizer. We have Thieves hand spray. I mentioned one of the other webinars, the last week that we were open, we had a wipe down procedure. We had a point person who was wiping down the chairs and the handles and the handle on the bar coming up the stairs and the bathroom. And we had COVID, unknowing to us, we had COVID positive patients in the office, and not one of my employees, my team, got COVID. None of the other patients to me, because we were wiping down, we were diffusing, we were using Thieves, and I believe it saved us, to be honest with you. Another oils that are really important part of our arsenal are the RC for respiratory care, rubbing it on the chest, putting it on the sinuses, diffusing it, putting a few drops in the in the bottom of the shower and letting the water collect. It's a blend of essential oil. It opens up the respiratory system. Raven is another oil, is my go-to for respiratory symptoms. These are the things. I've been using a lot of peppermint with patients who have high fevers. Some people get fever, some people don't, but you could put it on a few drops of peppermint in water, soak a towel, put it on the neck, put it under the arms, over the head, right? You don't want to get peppermint in your eyes. So I was make that little warning sign there. I like to have patients put 1 drop of peppermint in a glass of water and drink that if they have headache. Headache is a big symptom with this. Headache or fever really cools the body down. And as I said, you just have to be careful about getting it in. You want to get it in your eyes, and you also just want to be careful about brands. Not all brands are safe to intake orally. The Young Living brand is, so always just look and check that before you use any other brands. But all of these we have access to. So the big question was the antibody test. You guys know I don't ever use anything in my practice that I can't back up, that I'm not sure about, that I haven't yet practiced on my friends and family. They're my guinea pigs. So we tested the team and some family members last week with the BioReference came out with an antibody test that they've changed twice. The first round I tested on my family. The second round I tested on 15 of our team. 2 of them I know had this virus with certainty, and everybody came back negative. So I'm not convinced that this test is accurate, which is why I haven't rolled it out to the whole patient base. BioReference is bringing in the Abbott Labs test this week, should go live. That is at the highest level of sensitivity, so I have faith that that's going to be the one that I feel comfortable using on patients. I will say a lot of my patients went to CityMD. I don't know the particular device that they're using, but their data, their results are accurate. So I do feel comfortable with the CityMD antibody testing, but I don't have access to it personally yet. And when I do, when BioReference comes out with one that I know works and I can back up and feel comfortable with, you guys will be the first to know. But I do think checking your antibodies is important. I do think having that information is going to be very valuable. I think a lot of people had this virus in January and February, early February, and they didn't know that COVID was a thing. They recovered and they should have antibodies. So it's something that will be very helpful for you to know. And I think it's very important. So it really is all about balance. I always say this, but there couldn't be a more important time to really hone in on this and really look at your life. I think a lot of us are going to come out on the other end of this. Kind of this pause it's really been a pause. And we've been able to take a step back and look at our lives and think about what's important and, get closer with our families and get closer with our loved ones and come out on the other end of this, really making sure we create the life that we want to be living, where health is the focus and we want to do work that we love. We want to have a schedule that doesn't kill us and doesn't drive us into the ground, and maybe choose not to commute because that commute is really hitting your adrenal glands and making you miserable. I just think that this is a time that can be beautiful for all of us, and I hope that this information is helpful for you guys. These are some of the links that we have to our blog where you can go back and share the PowerPoints, to order the supplements, to get essential oils that you can trust, to order CBD products. CBD products we talked about in the last lecture, very, very anti-inflammatory. So we talked a little bit about it today with the topicals. For the rashes, but the CBD taking orally is very anti-inflammatory. It's also helping people a lot with the anxiety and helping them get a better night's sleep. And so that's something that, is really nice to have in the house. And you do want to have a quality product when it comes to CBD. They are not all safe on the market. That's a big one when you think about toxins. The CBD, the hemp plant and the marijuana plants are hyperaccumulators. So they actually suck up toxins better than the average plant. They actually used to plant these in a toxic area to clean the soil. And so if you're going to buy from a company that's not using safe products where they're, third-party tested, grown in a greenhouse, you could be putting on products that are toxic, which would not be good at this time. Another thing just to mention now that I'm thinking about it on that venue is just be careful with your cleaning products. I worry about everybody so freaked out that they're using bleach and they're using ammonia and they're using all these harsh toxic chemicals that they're then getting on their skin and they're breathing into their respiratory passages. And our bodies don't have room for that right now. We need to be as clean as possible. We need to be minimizing the things that will tax our immune system. And I think we have to really think about toxins. We may touch on detox next week. Detox is usually my thing that I'm talking about in the spring and the summer, and I want everybody to do their detox, but that's on pause right now because detox is very, very essential for health. It's always the finish line for my patients. I want everybody to get the toxins out of their body once their gut is healthy and their immune system is strong. But when you detox, it's important, but it's also a little bit stressful. So it puts a little bit stress on your immune system, which is why I'm encouraging patients to wait. We're going to wait till fall to do our detox because we don't want to put any stress on the immune system right now. It's all about boosting. It's all about nourishing, and it's about, keeping the immune system as strong as possible. So when I say detox right now, I just mean detox your house, as far as just start to use natural products, try to avoid chemicals, try to avoid bleach, try to avoid things that are going to put stress on your respiratory system as well as your immune system, and just stay with as natural as you can, as organic as you can. That's the best thing that you can do. So let's open it up for some questions.
All right, everybody. Looks like we've got just a few questions, and they're pretty much on the topics that we had discussed today. If you could just touch, Dr. Blanche, a little bit more on what's going on with the COVID in the children, those Kawasaki-like symptoms that you're seeing right now, and whether or not those children had tested positive or are testing positive for COVID. Like, what's the correlation between this new disease and COVID itself?
It's a great question. So I have not seen it. Like I said, I have no patients with this. I have no families with this, thank God. I'm reading about it. What they're saying is that some of these children are testing positive for COVID, a fair number of them. So they are associating it with COVID. Now, is it faulty testing? I mean, I don't think the nasal swabs are 100% accuracy. We certainly have upwards of 30% false negatives. So are those children also COVID positive and they're just getting a negative test? Possibly. So I do believe it seems to be associated with COVID. Like I said, it's going to be severe digestive symptoms, potentially rashes, that frostbite type look on the toes, a very, very sick child. It's not going to be mild symptoms. I think that these children probably do have significant pre-existing conditions. There's not a lot. The health department literally just sent out this memo, I think it was Tuesday. So this is just coming out. I bet you in the next week, I'm going to have a lot more information on this than I could do currently, because unfortunately with this virus, we're learning as we go. Just like the doctors are saying, 6 weeks ago, they were treating this totally different in the ICU. They had bad information. They had no information, right? We were flying on the seat of our pants. We were doing the best thing we could based on old paradigms, old things. We don't treat this like septic shock. We don't treat this like pneumonia. This is different than anything else. So I have to believe the data on the kids. It's just starting to hit. We're just starting to hear about this, and I don't have my hands around why they think this is happening. A lot of children will have pre-existing conditions that parents don't really know about until So, I have to believe our healthy children home taking their fish oils and taking their vitamin D and their zinc. My prayer is that that's going to keep all of our children from, God forbid, having something serious like this.
Thank you. Another question on the COVID itself. We're noticing that people in the hotter weather states, they're still getting sick. And if this is one of those diseases that's going to be resistant to heat, like it gets killed by heat, and also like if it acted like the flu, where the warmer months we won't really see it, why are we still seeing it in those hot weather states?
Great question. So I think that the virus will respond to heat in your body, right? So high temperatures are a good thing for this particular virus. A hot bath, a hot sauna, heat. Once you're positive and you're fighting the virus, I know heat will help you. I don't believe that this is your typical flu. Flu, comes as soon as like November because the vitamin D levels go down. We have it all winter. As soon as spring comes, we start getting sunshine, the vitamin D comes back, it starts to go away. It's definitely seasonal. They still get the flu in warmer climates, but they don't get it as severely as we do up north. So, in the colder climates. So I don't know. I honestly, like I said last week, I've never said I don't know more times when it came to medicine. And I'm not afraid to say I don't know, but usually I can go find out and get the answer. And I think that's one of those questions we have to wait and see. I think, they have a huge amount in Miami. It's plenty hot in Miami. It's in the 90s. I think we're going to have to wait and see on that. It's one of those things about this virus that I think is very atypical.
We're hearing a lot of buzz right now, especially in the news, well, actually not in the news. We're hearing a lot of buzz right now about how staying in lockdown is actually reducing our immunity. Because how we would normally build an immune system is being out in the public and being in touch with these things every day. What is your view on that?
It's a great question. It's a great thought. We believe in the germ theory. We believe to get out there and get our kids in the dirt and get in the garden. And, our body builds immunity by getting exposed to colds and viruses and flus, right? So, children who go to daycare, they get sick a bunch in the first few months, but then they never get sick because their body's sort of seen everything and built an immunity. So their immune system's stronger for it. So the concern is that we've got this on and we're using our antiseptics like crazy and we're wearing gloves. And are we going to be decreasing our immune system's ability to be smarter, to learn from colds and viruses? And I think, yes, in the long term, that would be an issue. Okay. Some people are taking this question to an extreme, being like, screw this, I'm not wearing a mask or gloves. I'm going about my business. And I don't think that that's the right answer. I think you have to remember you're wearing a mask mostly to protect other people. Right. So you don't want to take that information and get it all mixed up so that, you go out and you expose the girl at the register and now that girl's grandma is now going to end up sick in the hospital with that virus. So I think you have to be ethical and you have to be responsible. Right now, we're in the heat of this, and it is important to protect other people when you go outside. Because a lot of people are asymptomatic and out there. And that's why we got into trouble. They were out there spreading this for weeks and nobody even knew. But yes, I'm telling my patients to get outside, to get in their garden, to have their kids play in the dirt. You're not wearing your mask at home. Don't go crazy with these toxic killers like Clorox and aluminum, right? You're home, you're with your family. I said earlier, I think it was webinar 1, in the beginning I had, let's say the dad gets sick. I'd have him go in his bathroom, his bedroom and isolate from the rest of the family. But then I noticed everybody was getting in the family anyway, right? The whole family was getting it. So it's why torture that person? They were contagious 5 days before they presented with symptoms. So that was already on the light switches and it was on the toilets, and everybody had it, right? So, you're in a terrain with your family. You're still exposing yourself to outdoor, pollen, dander, bacteria. Don't go crazy. Get out in your backyard and play. You don't need to wear a mask with your family. You don't need to wear a mask in your house. But I think if this goes on long term, we really do have to think about what it's doing to our immune systems. God willing, this is not long term.
Do you recommend lavender, frankincense, any of our oils, and Epsom salt while pregnant?
You can do Epsom salts while pregnant. You can do lavender, everything in moderation. But there's no contraindications, and I'll double check this. Lavender, you have to be a little careful because it is estrogenic. So you wouldn't want to be bathing yourself in lavender on a daily basis, but if you were going to use it a little bit to help you sleep or maybe put it on a rash, it's not going to cause a problem. But yes, you can use those 2 oils during pregnancy. I will double check it and put that in the article after this if there's any contraindications to that. But the oils are really pretty safe.
Now, as far as alternative milk sources, we had a question versus coconut milk versus almond milk, which one may be better, and also pea milk. So bringing up those calcium questions from before, which ones do you recommend?
I like to diversify it. I don't think anybody should be doing anything every day. I like to rotate the food so your body doesn't see the same thing all the time and become resistant to it. We can get a food sensitivity. So, in my refrigerator, we have almond milk, we have coconut milk, we do pea milk. There is a gluten-free oat milk that people sometimes use. Hemp milk is an option. So I think the more you diversify your diet, even from a milk standpoint, the calcium is going to be most rich in the almond milk. If you're thinking about calcium in particular, but all the oils are really good for you, and all the oils and all the milks.
How about garlic, ginger, turmeric, lemons, things like that we would normally use for detox? We want to up those right now. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, garlic. We have the worst breath in my family because we're doing garlic like crazy. Ginger can go in your green smoothie. Definitely anything that's going to boost your immune system and be anti-inflammatory is your go-to right now. Food is medicine, definitely.
And we do have a question here. Again, we're going to touch on this when a vaccine does come out. What's your opinion on that?
I can't really say. It's too early. I can say that we've never really created a successful RNA vaccine. It's very difficult to make it work. The flu vaccine, we guess at the beginning of the year what strain it's going to be. I'd say probably 1 in 5 years we guess right. There's a lot of things in vaccines that stress the immune system, like mercury and formaldehyde and things like that are really toxic. So, I'm very cautious with anything that's going to tax the immune system right now. I'm not hanging my hopeful hat on vaccine as the answer for this.
As far as surface disinfectants go, do you agree that maybe we could use like peroxide, or are we just going with the
Yeah, sure. You
thieves?
could create your own. You could use something with peroxide. You could use vinegar is a great thing to use to create for like glass cleaners. Thieves is primarily what I use. I'll dilute it, use about this much sieve and then all water. And you can spray that in fabric. You can spray that on pillowcases. I wash the floors with it. But yeah, there's a lot of household things you can do that'll be beneficial without being so toxic.
Now, we did notice on that new pyramid there were no grains at all listed. So does that mean that we can't have any at all, not even oatmeal if it's gluten-free?
Well, you know how I feel about that. I just don't think grains are beneficial. I have to be honest with you. Grains you can live without grains. There's nothing nutritional in grains that you absolutely have to have. And there's a lot of thoughts on this. There are people that would absolutely disagree with me, and they think grains are essential for getting what you need for the digestive system. I don't think that they are necessary. I think if you're going to have a little bowl of gluten-free pasta or occasionally have some rice, it's not the end of the world. It's not going to kill you, but the lower you keep the grains, the better, as far as I'm concerned. A lot of them are genetically modified. There's a lot of glyphosate sprayed on grains. There's a lot of arsenic in rice. There's just a lot of toxins. I think the grains are more toxic than the meat in this country. And part of it is our farming practices, our processing, our use of glyphosate and Roundup. That's the problem. So I really don't believe that grains should be part of a healthy diet, to be honest with you.
Now, as far as taking those supplements you were discussing, like garlic, turmeric, things like that, if we can't get them in our food and we wanted to purchase a supplement, are there any that you suggest? Because we are noticing some of them contain things we don't want to take, like lead.
Yeah, you have to be very careful. I'd rather see you get it as food. Turmeric is a good example of a supplement I used to use a lot of. I would use it in anybody that had arthritis or had any joint pain. It was a great anti-inflammatory, and everybody's taking turmeric, right? So popular. And I started to see turmeric come back on our food sensitivity report. And a lot of people, like 30% of people it was showing up as an inflammatory trigger on their food sensitivity report. And this happens, I learned from my patients, this happens periodically. I'll start to see a food, for example, rice. Several years ago, all the gluten-free products were made with rice, right? And I started to see rice come up in 30% of people's reports. And I went, what's going on with rice? Something's wrong with rice. So I started to pull back, get everybody off rice, tell them I didn't know why. One of my patients called me and said, hey, did you see the news last night? There's arsenic in the rice, right? That story broke and everybody was now aware that there was arsenic in the rice. Same thing's going on with turmeric. Something was going on with turmeric for a while. I would say at least 3 years, I was seeing an increased incidence of inflammation from turmeric. And so I just stopped using it because I didn't know. And I was cautioning people to not buy it, assuming it was some sort of contaminant. I did find out from one of my supplement companies that they had only had 2 sources of turmeric left in the world that they felt comfortable putting in their products. And when I asked them what they were identifying, what was the contaminant, they said it was a carcinogen that was being used to put the turmeric into capsules, right, to filter it more quickly. So carcinogen, your body sees turmeric carcinogen, you start to react to turmeric. So I'm very cautious when I see people buying turmeric. I'd be very, very careful. I know the Zymogen company has clean turmeric. I know the Orthomolecular company has clean turmeric, but be very cautious with turmeric. Most of the time I have to tell people when they ask me about brands, I just don't know, so unless I've had personal experience with them or I've had a patient that's been on them and I was able to see that they're, a lot of times I just have to say, I'm not sure, because I'd rather err on the side of caution. I don't want you taking anything that is going to, be detrimental. There was a large problem with lead in the A lot of the Ayurvedic herbs and some of the traditional Chinese medicine herbs were contaminated with lead. So you just have to be so careful. And it's always better to stick with like turmeric as a root, and cooking with it is going to be fine. But you just have to be just so cautious and careful, and work with brands that you know are doing the testing and being careful.
That does bring us to the end of our questions. So I did want to remind everybody before Dr. Blanche finishes up for the day that that chat that we put all those questions in, some of you I just answered directly because they were just not super simple, but answers I already had. We didn't have to wait for Dr. Blanche on them. There is a function at the bottom of the little three dots. You can click on it. There's a spot to print or save the chat, and we're also going to be sending it in the future with all of those webinars we've been emailing out after, and you can find them as well on our website.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for being here. It means the world to me. And I'm really, really glad I can get this information. Please feel free to share the webinar, share the PowerPoints. The more people we can get on supplements and getting aware that they have control in this and start to eliminate some of that fear, the better. If you guys have questions for our final week, you can always email us, ahead of time, and I'll build those answers into the next PowerPoint. But I hope you guys have a beautiful week, and thanks again for being here. I really do appreciate it. And my love to you all.